From the swamp to the stars, it is that time once again where we bring in little Timmy Seanor and the UFO report.
Nobody's gonna know.
They're gonna know.
Tim, it's always interesting when we get things going here on the big show because, you know, there's always UFO news that seems to be rattling around the old internet these days. And, you know, could SETI be getting back into what we're talking about here? I don't know, man, but I have a feeling we're going to talk long and hard about this.
Well, I hope that you have the story because after my search, I never came up with it. So hopefully you managed to dig that one up. I have the other 3 stories covered, though. Hopefully you've got this one.
Well, what do you got? What do you got for us? What do you got for us?
For my top story, we actually do have a story from Twitter brought to us by none other than the famous Jaime Maussan. And he's bringing us some information on a Gaza takedown of a UFO, stating that the Israel Defense Forces have released video of the moment one of its warplanes shot down a UFO over Gaza. And so connecting to the imagery, there's a short video that's provided that starts off stating that it is in fact an object that appears to be a triangle in shape, a dark triangle, immediately kind of taken down, if you will, and then destroyed, and the pieces of debris fall into what appears to be the ocean in this black and white video. And so they're talking between battalion commanders asking for permission to fire, and then once granted, we see that take place. So the interception of the aircraft took place, and the video is considered to be real video, but what is exactly it showing and what is the source? Still up in the air and quite questionable. And we know that Jaime has a track record of balloons occasionally, and maybe not being able to vet sources as well as some of us would like. But your immediate impressions, Dave, after viewing the video, I'm not sure if you're able to bring it up or not, but my description is pretty clear on what it is, at least for your radio audience.
Well, I mean, the idea that they actually shot one down, how truthful could this actually be? Because, I mean, wouldn't this make international news right across the board?
Well, I do agree with you there, but as we know, media handles the UFO topic in really odd ways, and somebody's UFO is someone else's UAV. And just with the switching of one letter, you have a completely different story. And so news doesn't necessarily travel fast when it comes to this. Now, it takes quite a while to vet a piece of information like this, but after viewing the video, I think it's pretty safe to say this is probably exactly what it says. But let's consider what, again, we are actually getting a video of. A triangle can be so many things. Nowadays, we know we have drones that shape, but we also know historically, we've also had massive triangle UFOs that potentially aren't man-made. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing something targeted and destroyed over the Gaza area. And that's about all we know because it's very grainy, as always, and the source is questionable.
I always have troubles understanding anything by Jaime Maussan, who is a legendary journalist out of Mexico. But when it comes to this subject, I mean, you could put a bunch of alien dolls on a road somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and he's going to buy it as being authentic. It's been troublesome at times watching what he displays as UFOs or or little people that have been found down in Argentina and Brazil. And I I don't want to say that the guy is untrustworthy, because he has a great reputation in Mexico. But when it comes to this subject, he just seems to buy everything at face value rather than doing his incredible research that he does for other stories.
Right. No, I agree with you, but I also consider that he's a journalist from another part of the world where sensationalism sells and sells newspapers. And coming from that journalism is usually the report everything and let the audience consider what they want of it. And that's just another way to report. Um, and I don't really mind that way. I was okay growing up with, and I say growing up because that's just since 2019, but my UFO knowledge started, by watching things from him as well. And it taught me what to watch out for in the media, and I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned by his body of work. And so when he does bring something of value, and also he brought us stuff from the ISS and stuff from, some near misses that could have been UFO and things like that. So we know some of his, excuse me, footage has been valid. So I can't throw out the baby with the bathwater when it comes to this. So we'll have to wait to see, how valid this is and what it pans out to be. I hope, it's pretty recent. It was just a release today. So at some point, I'm sure people will come forward with perhaps a little more information on it.
Well, I hope so. I hope that it does come through, because we definitely want to see something big happen regarding UFOs. But I'm not buying this video that's out there.
Right.
And
But consider for a moment, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Jeremy Corbell comes out with videos like this all the time, and we can't get enough. So, we can't just discount this just because it's coming from Jaime. If this had come from, excuse me, Corbell or the Navy for that matter, our eyes would be all over this just because it is, military video.
and I'm not saying that as a shot at Jaime. I'm saying that as if it was something this drastic and this large, I do believe that it would be mainstream all over the place, across the United States, across Canada, across the European nations, everywhere. This is why I have troubles. It reminds me of those Facebook CGI videos that had like Saturn appearing in the sky, and they'd be like, "What is this? What is going on? Watch this video before the government takes it down." I mean, this is what I'm hearing from this video. Okay, I'm not saying that he didn't do his due diligence, but something that large where a military aircraft actually shot down a UFO, I just don't think it's right. I think it would be on every major newscast. Whether you like the mainstream media or not is irrelevant. It's the fact that it would be a mainstream story that would be on every newspaper, every internet site, and it's not. And this is where myself as a journalist, I put the red flags up, and I'm thinking, okay, if this is what it is, why isn't it everywhere? And it's not.
I think that's a great question. But even if it isn't what it is and it's something else, shouldn't it still be up there? Let's just say it is something mundane like a drone. Wouldn't it still be relevant information, and shouldn't it be up to the public's decision on what it is? The same way all the other recent drone takedowns have been made public that they could make public. So I'm just one of those people that give the public all the information that we can, and just take it at face value and almost take it blindly if you can. Like, don't even look at the source until the end, perhaps after you've made your consideration, just to be fair to the material. But at the same rate, I totally understand what you're saying. If this was real, if this was something to be considered, even if it was drone, we don't know if it is real drone footage, it would be mainstream. But consider again that no one really wants to report on this right now, right? It feels like it's really a hot button topic. Anything that comes out is totally scrutinized. It becomes directly under fire by our president. It's got his interest, right? So I just think it may be one of those things that the mainstream media has other things to cover right now, as we know. And I'm not even going to bring up the Orange Man at this point to discard that, but it just all happens at the same time. And you're like, wow, it's all just trying to distract us. And it's so well timed.
Well, let's move on to another story here, because I want to get to this story about SETI. Now, this story came out yesterday, so it's after April Fool's. And it says, a coherent radio signal has been detected from an alien planet, suggesting it could be more likely to be habitable. And the signal suggests that the planet has its own magnetic field, which is thought to be central to sustaining life in a particular world. On Earth, our magnetic field helps protect us from the high-energy particles and plasma that are blasted from the sun. As such, any alien life is likely to depend on being protected by a similar field. But until now, researchers have struggled to confirm whether distant rocky planets have magnetic fields of their own, and therefore have found it difficult to say how likely a planet might be able to support life. Now, the new candidate, YZ SETI B, a rocky planet that orbits a star about 12 light years away, which realistically isn't that far, has sent a repeating radio signal that comes from the star and seems to be affected by the planet. The radio waves the researchers detected from the planet appear to be generated when the star interacts with its planet's magnetic field, because the two of them, one second here, and of course, this is where the story is going to mess up here. Where am I here? Because the two of them are so close together, the new candidate is an ideal pair to test theories about whether those magnetic fields could be detectable at such a distance. Researchers describe the effect as similar to the aurora borealis or northern lights, which happens on Earth when high-energy particles from the sun interact with our planet's atmosphere. We're actually seeing the aurora on the star. That's what this radio transmission is, said Sebastian Pineda, an astrophysicist with the University of Colorado and one of the researchers who saw the signal. There should also be aurora on the planet if it has its own atmosphere. The search for potentially habitable or life-bearing worlds in other solar systems depends in part on being able to determine if rocky, Earth-like exoplanets actually have magnetic fields, says Joe Pesci, program director for the National Radio Astronomy Observatory. This research shows not only that this particular rocky exoplanet likely has a magnetic field, but provides a promising method to find more. The findings are described in a new paper, Coherent Radio Bursts from Known M-Dwarf Planet Host YZ SETI, that was published in Nature Astronomy. Tim, your thoughts on SETI picking up a signal?
I mean, it's exciting. It's really exciting. I mean, we know that we also had evidence that there's a Goldilocks zone out in TRAPPIST, like TRAPPIST 1 in the E through G zone. There's another like 40 light years away. This was only 12 light years away, so that's a much closer exoplanet to have found. So that is really interesting to me. It's bringing it a lot closer, and that just shows you that it's absolutely reachable. What I find so interesting is that it's SETI to have come out with this. And it's interesting to see that they weren't just using their initial technology to search for life. They've really, I don't know how to put it. They're looking in different ways, obviously, to have found it this way. It's really interesting. So they're noticing an aurora. Is that basically what they're saying? So that shows that there's a magnetic field, which means that there's potentially an atmosphere. So it's just, that's so great. That's interesting. I never would have thought that that was the way we would discover it, and that it would be SETI to bring it forward. I know that your opinion must be flipped, or perhaps you're suspicious, Dave.
Well, I just don't trust anything that SETI says.
There
Okay,
it
they
is.
are. Yeah, this is what you were waiting for, and thank God we only have about 90 seconds left before we break. We may continue this afterwards, but SETI has been a NASA program looking for radio waves and potential other life forms way out there in the solar system, and for 40, 50 years they've only come across two signals, or a couple of signals. This one being the latest, the first one being the wow signal back in the 70s, 80s, which really, really seemed to draw a lot of conclusions that there might be something more out there. But this is a group of astrophysicists that have been looking for life on other planets and haven't found any, but seem to really, really underestimate the UFO community in regards to what's being experienced here, with people seeing strange craft, people experiencing UFO contact, ET contact, so on and so forth. And being a government agency that tied to NASA, and we've seen the jokes that NASA has played over the last year in playing shocked that there are UFOs being sighted around, and we have called them out ad nauseum on that. I just don't trust anything that SETI says. I'm not saying that they didn't find a signal. I'm pretty sure they did. But does it really matter? They haven't found anything in 50 years. Tim, I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to continue this conversation about SETI when we return on Spaced Out Radio. The UFO Report with Tim Seanor happens a few times each week. We love it when our resident Timbit comes on to talk about everything in the stars. Spaced Out Radio's final half hour returns right after this. Stay tuned. Mr. Cowley. Dun, dun, dun. Welcome back to the show. Dun, dun. Oh, Mr. Cowley. Dun, dun, dun. Loves his Spaced Out Radio. Yes, Mr. Cowley, I know they found a lot more. I just don't like giving him credit. I don't.
Hey, at least we know it was Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
Writing his paper over there, YZ SETI.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more.
You're not going to let it go.
Dave Walters. I've got this giant apple upstairs calling my name. Dude, this thing is like this big.
Only the apples in BC talk.
I had one last night before I went to bed. Dude, it was phenomenal. I like a good apple. This was a good apple.
As big as your head, you say?
No, about there.
Wow.
About there.
GMO, baby. That sounds like a GMO.
I don't care. It's good GMO.
GMO.
Mo.
It's just everything's big up there, right? Everything. You guys just grow stuff large.
Dude, you should see the greenhouses around here. Crazy. Not where I live, but in my old hometown. Oh, greenhouses everywhere. Hey, Bialza Brad, good morning to you. Why does it say chat disconnected? Please wait while we try to connect you.
That's not good, but I'll tell you this. There's tons of greenhouses here in Oregon too, but it's all cannabis. All of it.
Yeah.
They don't grow apples in greenhouses.
I hear you there. I hear you there.
Those Gonians. And Yeah, mushrooms now legal, so that's a thing. Yeah, when I heard that mushrooms were going to be legal, I was like, what?
Yes.
It's going to get interesting because the drivers are already really bad here. Drivers on mushrooms, oh, that'll be fun. How are you going to prove they're on them? I don't know. Are we going to talk Skinwalker Ranch and Travis Taylor tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That guy. Good.
We'll get into it, man.
And I dragged MUFON back into our stories for the night. So if we get to my last story, we get to talk about your favorite organization.
Stop saying that I don't like it.
No, I said your favorite organization. We've been there together. You spoke there. You killed there.
I
It was
did.
awesome.
I did. You know what? Let's just be honest. I did.
Yeah, it was great. You should MC there.
Oh.
Just my opinion. I had a blast there. Everyone was so nice. Oh my gosh.
YJ says Tim and Dave should do mushrooms on air one night so they could kick in about halfway through the show. Oh my gosh.
What do you mean we should, YJ? What do you think? How do you think we get through these shows? We just, I'm just kidding. YJ gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we were supposed to do an April Fool's joke. Did you get his email?
Did I?
You did.
No.
YJ, don't let him deny that he got that email.
I never got the email, dude.
Huh. I should have forwarded the one I got from him. It was a good one, YJ. YJ had a secret April Fool's joke for your audience.
Oh, man.
And I forgot about it, YJ.
There you go, Tim. Way to screw it up, buddy.
I dropped the ball.
Way to screw it up, bud. Good job, Timmy.
You see how that unfolded right here on radio?
Routine grounder to third base. Tim picks it up and fobbles the throw. Doesn't even make it to first base. All right, here we go with the final half hour. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the UFO report. Our main man, Tim Seanor, our resident Timbit, is here. We're talking about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and picked up another signal from outer space. And Tim, thank you so much for being here, my man.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Oh, you are welcome. You are welcome. All right. So the big debate with SETI is, would, after their almost 50 years of searching the skies for any sort of lifelike signal, that they actually are catching something? You know, they've been going at it for years. They still say they haven't found anything. In the meantime, while they're looking up, the UFOs are flying all around them, picking up regular people like you, like me, are having experiences, many members of our audience having experiences, but not to SETI, that doesn't exist, and I always found it funny, and I know this doesn't really have anything to do with the topic, but Seth Stoshak, who used to run the SETI program for NASA, is one of the biggest critics and heels in the UFO world, basically saying, if we haven't found it, there's nothing out there. And yet, he was one of the early additions to Avi Loeb's Galileo project, which is all about aliens and UFOs, or so we're led to believe. Your thoughts on that, man?
Well, I think that he learned something after collaborating with Mr. Loeb. As you know, Mr. Loeb has a saying that extraordinary evidence requires an extraordinary funding, right? And so understanding that now they're collaborating suddenly, and I'm imagining the conversation that took place behind doors, obviously, between Avi and Seth, something along the lines of Avi saying, Seth, if you want to provide the reasons for people to want to spend money on your project, you're going to have to come up with some evidence on your project. And I think the result of that was a scramble to find something that was relevant to the topic to express his need to continue SETI and the program that it's now working on, because we know that NASA is pulling its bootstrings up and tightening on budgets because they're trying to get to the moon. And we know that collaborations are usually for a reason. And so my guess, and of course this is conjecture, that discussions behind closed doors were more along the lines of how can we move things forward with these organizations without expressing some results. And so perhaps these are some of those results that they're hoping to express the need for further budgetary needs.
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. And you know what? The idea that I have, or the impression that I have from SETI, is that they have played this game long enough, and they have been politicized long enough and funded long enough where they probably should have found something by now. A lot of people may not agree with that, but with the amount of UFO sightings that have taken place, if we just say in the United States or North America, for anybody to have any disbelief that there is nothing going on out there that is extraordinary is very tough to take. It really is tough to take, because we really don't have a timeline or a fixture of what's going on. What we do have is we do have an understanding that there is something very, very interesting that is happening to a lot of people through their sightings, through their own, how can we put it, their own experiences that they are having, Tim. And to be denied by a group like that is kind of interesting, if you ask me. SETI is supposed to be there for the people, researching all of this stuff. If they really haven't done well by the people, for the people, and then again, considering that they are, a part of NASA, NASA hasn't done anything to help straighten out this UFO mess at all. NASA could be a prime leader in this, but they haven't done anything. They want to play UFO games instead of allowing Rudolph to fly the shuttle or fly the rocket and find them aliens.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair statement. And NASA has been pretty disappointing. And their statement that they were coming out looking for evidence was really a kick in the face. And to also consider that they have access to all of the astronauts that went up into space for them that had experience, they have a plethora, if you will, of stories that are by our best witnesses on the planet, in their opinion, that have evidence, if you will. I mean, their stories, although their stories, I think, would be considered evidence. So it's funny that they're looking to their own archives to prove out whether UAP and UFO exist or not. I find that absolutely just ridiculous. You're absolutely right.
All right, let's move on. What do you got for us next?
I've got a great story actually coming from Visions 13 on Skinwalker Ranch secrets that could change science and technology for humanity, says Travis Taylor. And so the phenomenon happening at Skinwalker Ranch is using non-human technology to create dangerous spikes in gamma rays, claims scientist Travis Taylor. And so he was speaking on a podcast prior to April 18th launch of History Channel's fourth season of Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch. And he explained that what we're measuring are spikes in the gamma rays. We took collaborated instrument out there that would measure the spectrum of gamma rays, and they were at 511 kilo electron volts. So what that means is the frequency of gamma rays or X-rays that happen when you have antimatter and matter colliding, when you have an electron and positron, they blow up and they create these gamma rays. So that doesn't happen anywhere except in atom smasher or big particle colliders. So the fact that it happens at such high levels and in such high localized spots is not necessarily technology that we have. And so it's not something naturally occurring necessarily also, and it's not from technology they've heard of. And so they're considering it something unique. And so what they were seeing also is that several times they'd had to evacuate an area because the radiation level got too high. And so here's the phenomena occurring that was really unexplainable and beyond physics. And what he was understanding was potentially a whole new regime of science and technology. And so this is pretty intense stuff. And if you listen in further on the podcast, he explains that he himself suffered radiation burns and radiation sickness shortly after being localized with radiation, standing in a group of other people. He was the only person that received this high 511 kilo electron volt charge. And this made him ill, and he had full-on radiation sickness after this. So kind of some new results and some new potential technology is what he's hypothesizing here. Now, Travis Taylor has been with Skinwalker Ranch going on for now 4 years, and he was part of what we now know was the UAP task force. So this is considered somebody that's in the know on this topic, and he definitely has the technology to back up what he's talking about. So kind of interesting. This is out in the Uinta Basin. I spent a summer out there. And Dave, it is pretty interesting to think that there could be something that has focused, localized gamma ray technology, beaming, if you will.
I think it's impressive. I think what we're going to see coming out of Skinwalker Ranch is great, and the information that's out there is going to be startling at times like this. I mean, look, we've heard of other people who've had close encounters with UFOs come up with these radiation detections or burns on their own skin. I mean, look at the famous case from 1967 at Falcon Lake, where Stefan Michalek had radiation burns all over his body regarding that UFO that took off in front of him. I mean, we could be seeing more and more of this. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet at Skinwalker Ranch, my friend.
Right. Well, I can tell you what, if I ever get another chance to be in the same room as Travis Taylor, I am not going to make him mad, because we know what gamma rays plus man does. He's going to turn into the Incredible Hulk right in front of my eyes. Gamma ray technology, right? And he was hit. So
very much so.
He was a scientist too, remember? The whole thing. It's all...
Are we surprised that this is now coming out, or are we to believe that this is the first time that this has happened at Skinwalker Ranch?
It's not the first time, in fact. And so I believe it was season 1 where one of the people that work on the ranch, I think as security or as a researcher, was hit with something that gave him a large issue with his brain and his skull. And I'm not going to get too technical because I don't remember exactly the medical situation. But it does seem like that area potentially does have some kind of radiation going on there. Now, let's consider it's also downwind from explosions that were nuclear testing that took place 60 years ago, roughly. And so you're talking about an area that could potentially have little localized areas where radiation has left a trace. And if you get too close to that area, it can make you sick. Now, I don't know that, but maybe. And I think that even Travis Taylor considered that, but he felt that with the detection equipment that they had out there, that wasn't what was making him sick. And I think he ruled that out, in fact. But again, consider that you're just downwind from some massive nuclear explosions. Many nuclear explosions were tested up there. So residual, even if it was 60 years, we don't know what fallout looks like and how it can react to human beings. So maybe it's something anomalous like that and explainable, but maybe it's something else like what he's saying, which is some kind of high technology and focused gamma ray technology.
No, I think you were absolutely right on that. And let's get to your final story of the night. We got about 7.5 minutes.
Okay, that sounds great. And so we're going to talk about the MUFON director's message. And so MUFON's journal is actually free this month. If you want to go to MUFON's website, you can go ahead and read their journal for April. And included in that is a message from the director. And so I'm actually having to click here for a moment, but bear with me while I just go down here. And so this is coming directly from David McDonald. And what he's wanting to do is and I'll just quote, "I would like to use the April message to tell you about some of the many accomplishments MUFON has made in this last year and to date." So membership applications continue coming in, sometimes at the rate of 30 to 100 per day. And so it's the highest applications ever. The app sales are incredible, and UFO mapping application has been named #1 app in the mapping and tracking category by Google. It is being sold in all 50 states and 32 additional countries. So Project Aquarius continues to grow as UFO groups from foreign countries hailing from South America and Europe have called to offer their files to the project. A10 and MUFON met with over 150 members of Congress and committee staff. They have been invited to present at the Senate Intelligence Committee, and they helped to shape legislation in both the 2022 and 2023 NDAA. They earned a Dear Colleague letter of support to advise the ARROW and the DIA, and that letter had a bipartisan support. They have increased press coverage in all major media outlets such as Ancient Aliens and other TV programming. And they have been asked to supply Congress and the Senate with quarterly statistical reports, and additionally supply special reports and white papers as well. So both Representatives Andre Carson and Tim Burchett have spoken at the MUFON Symposium. They have briefed House and Senate intelligence in SCIF, which is Sensitive Compartmented Information Facilities. And in the past 12 months have been quite an adventure for MUFON, and they continue to be a world leader in UFO UAP investigation and research. But the amazing thing is it's been accomplished with an almost all volunteer force. So the wins are yours. And he says, "Thanks for making MUFON great. Happy Easter." A lot of accomplishments.
Well, there are a lot of accomplishments when you play the government game. I'm still not fully sold that this is a proper way for MUFON to be handling things. but I think they are trying to gather their team together and trying to bring more focus to it. You know, it's funny because I've talked to a lot of members who are not happy with what's going on right now, but they all have this attitude of there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. You know, we're just here and we're going to continue to do our jobs and hopefully we can make things good for MUFON and do what we can. Whereas the board of directors seems to be extremely off pace with what their researchers are doing at times. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, but I also see potentially a director that has his eyes on a pretty massive goal, which is to let this massive body of data help sway some opinions up on the hill and to help inform people on the reality of this topic. I mean, he's got a lot of clout when it comes to connections, obviously, and he has this massive database that I'm sure is pretty convincing that there's something going on. You and I know. So let's consider the flip side of the coin here, that this is massive and that they're using major media outlets to get the word out. They're supplying Congress. They're briefing the House and Senate intelligence. I mean, I feel like if anybody is going to do that, it should be the people that know the truth. And ultimately, it's from the witnesses. And so if they're truly doing what I'm hoping they're doing, which seems like they are, then perhaps they're informing on the reality of the UFO topic and that it's massive and that it's worldwide, because they also have a massive global contact. MUFON is global. And so I know that you're very much on the other side, potentially, on some of these topics, not on all of them. I know you are a MUFON supporter, ultimately. But this does get into some pretty touchy subjects, because do people want their personal reports being used or not? Something to consider. However, I think it strives for change for the better, personally.
Well, it's going to be one of those wait and see approaches. Okay, it really is when it comes to MUFON, and like I said, I have a lot of friends within MUFON who are very good people, and the investigators and the state directors, shouldn't be held accountable for a lot of the politics that has happened with MUFON over the years, and they continue to impress. They continue to bring great work. I just don't know if a lot of the MUFON members are educated into what the board of directors is actually doing and trying to accomplish. I'm not sure there's been, Tim, we talk about transparency on this show, and we've kind of been throwing some knives and some ninja stars at Enigma Labs about their lack of transparency. I don't know how much transparency MUFON is actually having with its membership regarding this. Anybody can write a beautiful Heidi Ho neighbor type of monthly newsletter and tell everybody about how great life is and how blue the sky is coming into spring with the sun shining and rainbows all over the place. But did anybody ask, or did the board members ask for their new member who happens to be a lobbyist in Washington, D.C.? That wasn't voted on because the membership has no say under the current contract, even though there are many who believe that they do. Just nobody has pursued it legally. And so I think there's a divide in MUFON, but we don't know how big that divide is or whether it will ever come to fruition, or whether or not the membership will stand up to it. Tim, I got to say a big thank you to you tonight for another amazing UFO report. It's been absolutely great in regards to it, man. And continue your great work, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's always fun with you, little Timmy Seanor. and we want to say a big thank you as well to our good friend Swamp Dweller for another great spooky episode from the swamp. And then, of course, Mike Walker coming on in, detailing major UFO experience that he had growing on up. I mean, that's always difficult to talk about, but it's a good one nonetheless. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Facebook, Spreaker, the Space Travelers Club, LinkedIn, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.